Want more Gators Breakdown? Join Gators Breakdown Plus. Starting at $3 a month, get access to unique episodes, plus a blog, chat room, giveaways, shout-outs, and more. Gators Breakdown Plus is furthering the interaction with fans and listeners like you. Head to gatorsbreakdown.supportingcast.fm to join Gators Breakdown Plus today. Gators Breakdown, because there's never a dull moment in Gator Nation.
There we go. Had the mic on mute. Let's get this thing going. All right. The Gators Breakdown podcast is ready to go. I'm your host, David Waters. You can find me on Twitter at GatorDave_SEC. And you heard the motto, you heard the moniker, you know what it's all about, and for sure it is living up to it. There is never a dull moment in Gator Nation, and it's just been a complete news cycle, of course, in the recruiting world these last few days. Some good news, some bad news, but hey, it kind of continued today as well. If you want to kind of pinpoint into the Jacksonville area, that's kind of what we're going to do here, the 904 right here on this episode of Gators Breakdown. Of course, starting with the commitment of cornerback Sharif Denson. Kind of come out of nowhere. I think we kind of knew Florida was maybe the school trending, maybe the pick in the end, but timeline sped up a little bit right there. But good news for the Gators in the defensive backfield, getting Sharif Denson on the same day as Grayson Howard, the big-time linebacker commit out of Jacksonville. Andrew Jackson committed to South Carolina. That on the heels of Roger Kearney out of Jacksonville, or right outside of Jacksonville, Orange Park committing to FSU yesterday. We talked about that on the last episode. So, man, Jacksonville in the spotlight here in the next, in the last few days, coming up as well. We'll get into Trayon Webb delaying his decision to commit. It will no longer be June 30th. This coming up Thursday. He's going to delay it. So we'll get into all that. I mean, a Jacksonville-heavy episode right here on Gators Breakdown. It's kind of just where all the news is right now coming off. If you want to go back and listen to the last episode, we talked about the commitment of Gavin Hill right there on the defensive front for the Gators. Also, Florida missing out on Jaden Rashada. So if you want all that hoopla of that episode, if you haven't been able to check it out yet, be sure to check that one out after. I mean, look, after this episode, I'm coming at you late on a Monday night. Sharif Denson commits at night. I was trying to get a workout in, and then that news comes out. So forget about all that. I'm coming at you guys with an episode of Gators Breakdown. Hey, busy time. We know I'll cover it all right here. As I mentioned, an episode with Will Miles and Bill Sykes coming up on recruiting, and we'll get into the DeMarcus Bowman storyline as well with that one. I know it's just kind of been recruiting focus heavy. I'll get into that storyline next episode on Tuesday night with those guys. And the Twitter space is coming up as well with the Gator Collective with about 5 players there for the Gators. I'll get into that before I sign off here on this episode. But remember, everybody, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Really helps us out. Let's get to 10,000 subscribers right here on Gators Breakdown before the season starts. Hey, we ain't got much longer. A couple more months, and the Gators be running out of the tunnel right there. Let's get to 10,000. Right, just past 9,000 not long ago. Let's hit that 10,000 mark before the season. Hit that like button. Leave some comments. I know we're excited right here with the commitment and all the storylines, the roller coaster of recruiting. I know a lot of you guys want to comment on that. Be sure to check us out. Hey, mention 904, all these recruits out of Jacksonville. Well, you've got to check out Gators Breakdown at news4jax.com. All the storylines of Jacksonville recruiting will be covered there. Justin Barney does a great job, knows high school football, knows high school sports in Jacksonville better than anyone there. So it's if you want more on Denson, Webb, Howard, Kearney, I know those guys didn't choose Florida, but if you want even more there, be sure to check us out at news4jax.com. And for more Gators coverage, of course, news4jax.com/Gators Breakdown. All right, here we go. 904 heavy show, and let's start it with, Gator Nation, we got to commit right here. Defensive back, Sharif Denson, 4-star on the 24/7 Sports Composite, 4-star on the On3 Consensus as well. 24/7 Sports on their composite gives Denson a ranking of the 206th overall player in the country, the 24th ranked cornerback. The On3 Consensus has him 196th overall player and the 23rd cornerback. So top 200 player right here out of Duval, out of Jacksonville. Hey, I just said Duval, so we got to say it the right way, right? Duval right there, getting that commit from Jacksonville. Bartram Trail, Sharif Denson, 5'11", 170 pounds. He'll add some weight there, but big pickup for the Gators right here out of Jacksonville, a top 200 player. So the most recent commit before this, of course, was Gavin Hill. We discussed that last episode. He, at the time, was the second highest commit in the class. But now, that goes to Sharif Denson in the class of 9 commits so far. Florida's most recent string of commitments of Isaiah Nixon, now Sharif Denson, and Gavin Hill, they make up the top 3 players committed so far in the class. These string of commits, the 3 most recent commits, make up the top 3 players in the class. Now, I know there's been some bad news on the trail, but let's not forget this string of players here and the good news that comes with these guys. Hopefully some kind of spark with these 3. These guys right here in the top 250 range, all 3 guys here. So let's take the good news as well. One more note. Sharif Denson, of course, is a 9th commit of the class. But I don't know if you've noticed out there, 8 of the 9 commits Florida has so far are from the state of Florida. We've talked about that storyline of having to hit Florida, having to recruit Florida better. 8 of the 9 commits are from the state of Florida. He is the 43rd, Sharif Denson is now, he's the 43rd ranked defensive back Florida has signed all time in the 24/7 Sports all-time recruit listing at defensive back for Florida, with a rating of 92.04. Now, this includes cornerback and safety. So it includes the 2 positions. When you recruit this position, there's multiple cornerbacks. There's multiple defensive backs, multiple safeties at sometimes as well. He's the 43rd ranked defensive back all time for Florida. And to give a barometer of that, Trey Dean comes in at 40, D. Finley 41, Nick Washington 42, another Jacksonville guy, by the way. Donovan McMillan, 44th overall. So historically, it's about the top 200 range for players. Good pickup for the Gators right here out of the 904 and Sharif Denson. So, it was one we thought, as I said, trending, but really couldn't put a timetable on it. Made visits to Miami, made visits to Texas A&M, Florida State, Ohio State. But family ties to the program. Florida was going to be tough to beat here because of that. Big push from Patrick Toney to get this one done. His mom and dad graduated from Florida, growing up in Jacksonville, close to Florida. Florida was always the team that was around. When your mom and dad graduated from there and you're only an hour and a half from campus, I mean, Florida had to win this one if you catch my drift there. I mean, this would have been a tough one to lose. But also, just getting a good player here. He can play outside corner. He can play nickelback. The staff, they've told him that as much, but they really see him at star first, and move around if need be. Yeah, he has great length. He's got that versatility to play wherever he can in the backfield. That's what Patrick Toney and Corey Raymond like about Sharif Denson. Add that to his intelligence to play all those positions in the secondary. Not just a corner, not just an inside guy, not just an outside guy. Can drop back and play safety too. He's probably going to have to play some more safety this fall for Bartram Trail, so we may even get a better look at that this fall. Very confident player, changes 7-on-7 teams from Pro Impact here in Jacksonville to the heralded South Florida Express down there in South Florida. He wanted to test himself and and try it out for the squad. Made that team. Runs track in high school, the 100-meter, 200-meter, 4x100-meter events. So the speed is there. I mean, Florida's getting a pretty good, well-rounded, versatile defensive back here. Start out at star, and we'll see where it goes from there. This past season, 2021, about a year ago, I guess, the Florida Times Union here in Jacksonville was all First Coast selection. 34 tackles, interception. Served as a kick returner as well for Bartram Trail. Helped Bartram Trail win a district title, make second round in the playoffs in Florida's highest classification. 2020, he injured meniscus the spring before that sophomore season, but quickly rehabbed. All First Coast honorable mention in 2020. Started his sophomore season for a Bartram Trail team that went 10-2 that year. Lost in the third round of Florida's 8A state playoffs. Made 52 tackles in 2020 with an interception. Did Sharif Denson. So there you go. There's the type of player Florida's getting. A little bit of background on Sharif Denson. Great addition to the class for Florida. Right here as we're getting to the end of June. About to turn the calendar from June to July. So I think when you start looking at it, you add Denson to the class. Start looking at, and it's kind of what we started doing here on Gators Breakdown is, all right, what do you do with that position group after you add somebody? And we know the big target right there. Cormani McLean, number one defensive back in the country, in the state of Florida, in Lakeland. Florida's gonna end up getting him. Jordan Castile, another name to start looking for at the safety position for the Gators. I mean, those are the top two targets right there, I think, right now, as far as maybe who you want in the class. As far as Castile, who I think may even be likely. His commitment's down the road. But you add those two targets, and you have to add Denson to current commit. Let's not forget Aaron Gates. He's the fourth-ranked highest player in the class there. So, really shouldn't be forgetting that. But already, have him. He's listed as an athlete, but he will play defensive back for the Gators. So Gates already in the class. Denson already in the class. You'd love right now to add McLean and Castile. This was after Tony Mitchell committed to Bama recently, A.J. Harris at Georgia. And if you follow defensive back recruiting on Gators Breakdown, I've been saying it was likely going to be Denson and one of those 5 stars. I've always pinpointed McLean as more likely than Harris or Mitchell. Florida needs to flex some muscle. I know you might roll your eyes at that right now, and I get that with some of the recent news. But, Florida needs to flex some muscle, go get the top DB in the country in Cormani McClain when it's all said and done. That's got to happen. Overall, this class may not be where a lot of you want it to be, but you need to start at least pinpointing parts of the class where you're like, okay, Najee Harris out of IMG, 2 classes in a row, you've done the IMG thing now. Now it's time to go get the can't miss guys in the class. The guys that you should. My bad. I probably won't say should get Cormani McClain, but we know the storyline there. Top DB in the state of Florida, grew up a Gator fan. I mean, that's one you got to try and go get. And then, Georgia went and got Harris. Bama went and got Mitchell. Gators got to get McClain. Just got to do it. So, I mean, like I said, we'll look at the overall class when it's all said and done, but there need to be things that we can point to. McClain's going to be one of those. I mean, that was one when you start peeking ahead to when you turn the page to the next class and you start looking at the class of 2023. In February when the last class was done, all right, it's time to turn the page to 2023. Cormani McClain was number 1 on everybody's list that the Gators have to get. That really hasn't changed. All right, so right there, I mentioned very Jacksonville heavy storyline here on this episode of Gators Breakdown. I hate to talk about the guys we didn't get, but I will always lead with the guys we did get. So, Sharif Denson, welcome to the class. But very news heavy here in the Jacksonville area, as also on Monday, linebacker Grayson Howard commits to South Carolina over Florida. It was just I won't say but it was just too much for Florida to overcome there with the coaching change. He had some this was one I was a little close to being here in Jacksonville. A good friend of mine, very close to Howard there. And South Carolina was just going to be hard to beat. Now, when Florida got Mike Peterson from South Carolina, I was like, okay, that might shift it in Florida's favor, and it did help. But he has great relationships. He has a great relationship with Mike Peterson. Mike Peterson was a big reason he got interested in South Carolina, but built that same kind of bond that he built with Mike Peterson with a lot of people at South Carolina over the last year or so. So that one was going to be tough. Believe me, I wanted a guy. There was nothing probably besides McClain or something like that, but knowing what I know with Howard, I mean, I wanted to come on here and have an episode about him committing to Florida. I mean, the kid's going to be a leader. He's going to be a really good player for South Carolina. I'm going to root for him 11 weeks out of the year, except for the one time, one time a year when he matches up against Florida. But I mean, really good kid. I wish he was in orange and blue. South Carolina's getting a good one here as Grayson Howard commits to South Carolina. So linebacker there too. Linebacker recruiting for Florida hasn't really taken off as far as maybe that middle spot. So I would love to add him right there. So we'll see where Florida goes and pivots as far as linebackers go. With missing out on Grayson Howard and him choosing the Gamecocks right there. So also let's keep the storyline on Monday again. Denson, Howard, the third big storyline. Trayon Webb pushing his decision now to July 11th. It's supposed to be this Thursday, June 30th. And South Carolina's making a push here too. He had his official visit there this past weekend. And it was kind of a interesting Twitter. Trayon Webb posted something on Twitter. I forget the word, the exact. Great players want to play with great players. I think that's what it said. And not long after that, Shane Beamer, the coach of South Carolina, pretty much tweets the same thing. So start connecting the dots a little bit, and you start maybe, saying there's a lot of communication between Webb and South Carolina and maybe a commitment before Thursday. But then, not long after that, Webb announces that he's going to push his decision to July 11th. So we got to wait a little bit longer there. for that decision. Florida, South Carolina, Penn State seems to be the three schools in the battle right there. I don't know if there's much behind those tweets there. If you want to say maybe trying to connect dots too hard, then okay. But I don't think those tweets were any coincidence. I think there might be something to it, but I'm not sure if it's a final something to it. So we'll see where that one goes with Trayon Webb, the running back out of Trinity Christian here in Jacksonville. And to keep the Jacksonville storylines going one more time, in case you missed it, one of my favorite targets up there along the offensive line, Roger Kearney, right off of his official visit to Florida, about 30 minutes after leaving Florida's campus, commits to Florida State. That was on Sunday. So, ouch. Even the storyline of that one hurts just a little bit. But Roger Kearney, that's a good offensive line pickup for FSU. The relationship there with Atkins, Florida State's, has been working along the offensive line there for since Norvell. I believe he's the offensive coordinator now. But relationship right there. And he might even be the best recruiter on their staff, but still stings to lose Kearney there to FSU. So there's your storylines of the happenings of the Jacksonville area and this class of 2023. But let's look ahead a little bit as well. One more target that's going to be out there, Jordan Hall, defensive lineman from Westside High, Florida State, Georgia battle for the top 150-ish player out there. Another really good player from Jacksonville. I believe he camped at Florida recently. I think I saw a picture of him and Sharif Floyd, former Gator defensive lineman, there. He's still with the staff in some role there. So as Florida was hosting a lot of campers in the last few days, he was on campus for the Gators right there. So a lot of Jacksonville storylines, a lot of good players just go around. Remember, Florida got Jack Pyburn, another defensive lineman right there out of Bowles. Late push for him in the last class there. So, of course, it's a big storyline for me being here in Jacksonville. I get close to some of these kids and some of the storylines for some of these kids here. But, very instrumental in start closing that gap for Jacksonville kids. And this was a class to do it for me. I hate seeing Kearney go to FSU. I hate seeing Howard go to South Carolina. Hopefully Webb's in the class when it's all said and done. But I really like the pickup of Sharif Denson at a Bartram Trail. And one more storyline to kind of go along with this. I just mentioned the three commits Florida just got with Nixon and Hill and Denson and now Gates. Those are your top four commits right there in the class. And, it's trending to be a better defensive class than offensive class. I don't think I'm breaking any news there. And not sure about the margin on that. A lot of that will depend on what happens with Cormani McClain, one of the top players in the country. What happens with Trayon Webb in the coming weeks? We already know what happened with Jaden Rashad in the quarterback position. So, the defense is ahead of the offense. If you guys have watched the last couple of episodes, I've put that list of defensive linemen Florida's going after. And there's a lot of good players right there, too. So it does seem like a lot of the trends for Florida are starting to look like, maybe not a bad thing. We've seen how bad this defense is the last couple of years. But, we won't want it so heavy. We want some of those high skill players, some of those high marquee guys on offense to start popping as well. Quarterback, don't really know what's going to happen there. We talked about that last episode. But, can you get Eugene Wilson to pop at wide receiver? Andy Jean. Mentioned Trayon Webb at running back. Of course, we can't forget about Cedric Baxter out there as well at the running back position. Mentioning, losing Roger Kearney there to FSU along the offensive line. He would have been by far not by far. Najee Harris pretty good too, but he would have been the highest offensive line commit for the Gators right now, while Florida already has 3 in the class. So we'll see if offensive recruiting comes around to match what we think. As as I said this episode, the last 3 commits or the top 3 commits in Florida's class. So trending that way where the best players are going to be on the defensive side of the ball, not the offensive side of the ball. Pretty interesting to see how all that works out. All right. Trying to go through some of the comments right here before I sign off. Hey, Hot Top, what's up, man? Let's see. Yeah, Sportsy says, kind of just going off one of those last topics right there. We need to land Mazel, throw him in there as well, and Wilson. Definitely huge for the offense. Didn't mean to leave Mazel off there, but now just kind of going off some of the recent trends of wide receiver recruiting. Those are the names I'm starting to hear the most. If somebody might pop soon at the wide receiver position, Wilson, maybe geeing off his visit this past weekend, but, Aiden Mazel out there as well. I mean, his recruitment has kind of followed Sharif Denson's in a way with some of the visits that are out there, connections to Florida. Kind of ready to see where that one goes. Let's see. Go through here. Blah, blah, blah. This is sometimes boring, but got to make sure I get the right comments out here. Kedrick, Matthew Walker says, Kedrick Falk announcing his commitment on July 5th. I've heard a lot about that one. Maybe earlier on in that commitment, more trending Auburn. Had a really good visit to Florida. I think that put Florida in the mix. I think lately it has been Clemson, maybe the team trending there. So there's not a lot of info out there. His name has kind of just started coming up for Florida off that visit a couple of weeks ago now. Adam Webb asking how I feel about Kirkland. Oh, that one's tough. I think there's some connections up north. I think maybe in the Chicago area. So that maybe is why Michigan State's more in play. So I know that seems to be the team trending there. I mean, Lucas Simmons now, especially after Kearney has committed to FSU, Lucas Simmons, top target there right now. Let's see here before I sign off. Sportsy throwing it back in here. Aaron Gates to Michigan said who? Yeah, that's been a storyline throughout this recruitment in the last maybe month and a half or so that could happen. I think if it was going to happen, it would have happened by now. That part is just a guess of mine, but I have heard that a lot. But keep hearing it, and nothing really happened. I'm not so sure. I know the staff really likes Gates, so it would not be the storyline of passing on him to try and get somebody else. Staff likes Gates. So it's been in the class for quite a while now. So I'm not sure I see it. I think he stays in the class, but that is out there. Unique, man. Thank you so much right there. Yeah, it's kind of been therapeutic the last couple of days, hasn't it? I know. Look, guys, I know it hasn't been easy with all the stuff out there. It hasn't been easy, probably no matter what side of the fence you're on, because there's just been a lot out there. And there's staff have some of the staffs out there having to tweet at the fan base, and we don't want to see that. And I know that the letter Napier sent out last week, The report that came out after that was planned anyway. As kind of turning the page as a lot of the enrollees start getting on campus now and all that kind of stuff there. And that was supposed to be planned, and I know the timing was not great. If it was planned, okay, well, maybe don't put it out. But, if it was there already, I don't blame him for going ahead and putting it out. But the timing was not great. I get that. And then, as I said, you saw, it was deleted, but Katie Turner had to put out a tweet today, basically telling the fan base, some of the fan base, I don't want to speak for the whole fan base, to stop trolling her and how much she works and how hard she works and stuff. And they shouldn't have to do that. But yeah, I agree. It's been really an eventful, up and down roller coaster the last few days, last couple of weeks. Especially if you've kind of been as close to the Rashada recruitment as I was a little bit. It seemed to change hour by hour, day by day. That one was crazy. That probably it's not even probably. That is the craziest recruitment I've ever followed. And then I had already put out the episode. I didn't even really get into it, but look, I'm kind of just rambling, going off right here. Look, it's late night, but yeah, the storyline of all the stuff that came out with Rashada and the money, how much did Miami getting for, how much did Florida offer, his agent, Caspino coming out and bashing the Gator Collective and all that stuff. There's no need for that, but look, I was told 3 weeks ago Florida wasn't going to deal with that guy. And I think he was ticked off by that. So take that as you will. I think it was funny, and I put this out there on Twitter. I think it was funny that, whatever your narrative is about maybe why the staff is struggling early on right here in recruiting, there's a lot of narratives out there. And people didn't want to believe. Now, whether that, what was it, $11 million is true or not, it's not. But anyway, if you thought that was true, or if you didn't think that was true, Florida's not going to put up that much money, or, you're not going to believe that money in that article, but you're going to believe what some agent says in the same article, didn't make a lot of sense to me. But it fits some narratives for some people out there. And that's kind of just why we've been the quote-unquote mess out there on social media. That's just been kind of happening. But it has been an eventful, crazy couple of days. Kind of ready to sigh and breathe a little bit. Dead periods coming up in recruiting, so the news might start slowing down a little bit. But I think early July is probably going to be pretty eventful. We already said Trayon Webb there on July 11th. I think July 4th is supposed to be a lot in the recruiting world, a big day for a lot of a lot of recruits out there. So we'll see if Florida gets some fireworks there on July 4th. But after that, recruiting dead period coming up might slow down a little bit till all those visits in the fall start happening. So that's kind of what's coming up in recruiting world, dead period. So not much. But we won't slow down here on Gators Breakdown. A lot coming up. Bill Sykes will join Will Miles and me. We'll take a look at recruiting a bit. I know a lot of people want to hear from Bill, his insight with all the storylines coming out there. Will's putting out some good stuff, articles kind of covering the last few days and trends as well. So we'll get into that. As I said, we'll get into the DeMarcus Bowman storyline as well, as he transfers from Florida, commits to UCF. So good for him. Hope it all works out. But we'll get into that on the next episode of Gators Breakdown. And then, of course, Twitter Spaces, Wednesday night, 8 o'clock. Naquan Wright, Lorenzo Lingard, Montrell Johnson, Osiris Torrance, and Kingsley Eggleston. So that was going to be fun. It's going to be, focusing on the run game there with the running backs and the offensive line. Got some transfers from Louisiana with Torrance and Johnson going to jump in with us. So we got to get pick their brain about some changes from Louisiana to Florida, bringing along some of the players since they know the offense. So a lot of good storylines there that we'll have on the Gator Collective Twitter Spaces Wednesday night. So, all right, that'll do it for this episode, late night episode of Gators Breakdown, where Sharif Denson, cornerback from Bartram Trail in Jacksonville, commits to the Gators. That'll do it for this episode. I'm your host, David Waters. You can find me on Twitter at GatorDave_SEC. Guys and girls out there, thanks for listening to this episode of Gators Breakdown.